Welcome to Patriots Corner with Dr. Hill Law, your source for unfiltered conservative analysis. We are here to dissect this week's biggest stories in politics, breaking news, government, and the economy, all from a grounded conservative perspective. No spin, just straight talk about what matters to you. We'll delve into the issues shaping our nation, hold our leaders accountable, and discuss and debate solutions that uphold our core American values. Now, I wanted to say something before we start. I am not an attorney. My doctorate is in law and public policy, and my area of expertise is real estate development, urban development, transportation, and finance. Also, only started my live podcast a little over a month ago. For now, the structure I'm following is broken down into five or six 5-minute segments. At the end of each segment, I will review the comments, read a few, and answer any questions, and maybe have a little debate session. Additionally, I am always seeking possibly a co host or moderator producer. I am open to ideas on how to improve the format or structure of my content to attract more listeners. So if you have any ideas or are interested, please let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you in touch with you. Additionally, if you would like me to cover a specific subject, please let me know in the comments and so I can uh, set up a live over that. So for now, Patriots Corner streams live on Rumble, YouTube, Locals, Facebook, and sometimes on Instagram. Usually it's Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. Central and Wednesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Central. Eventually, the goal is to stream every day of the week, twice a day. But until I have grown my following large enough to quit my full-time job, this will be the schedule. And as I said, tonight, usually I want to be doing it on Monday night, but since last night's had no audio, it was kind of pointless. I deleted that one off, so I'm redoing for this. This was for last night, 6 o'clock. Segment one, I wanted to go over immigration. So on Saturday evening, ICE and HSI officials raided an underground nightclub in Los Angeles, California. In the raid, 36 Chinese nationals and Taiwanese nationals were rounded up and arrested. Since the team was part of the El Camino Real Financial Crimes Task Force, and due to the current ongoing investigations into financial crimes, no further information has been released by ICE or HSI at this time. Once again, the left's narrative, the illegal immigrants crossing the southern border are coming in from Mexico and South America, is proven to be false. Also, the issue at the southern border wasn't that they had said that it was an invasion when obviously it's turning out to not be true. It's turning out to not be them to be wrong and us to be right. So suppose even a couple of the arrested Chinese nationals turn out to be spies for the Chinese Communist Party. In that case, it proves that our open border during the Biden administration threatened our national security more than we can even begin to fathom. And then what happened yesterday is even more. We'll talk about that later, but which means that President Trump's concerns about the uncontrolled flow of illegal immigrants, drugs, human trafficking, and the threats it poses to our national security were not only justified, but also necessary to protect our country from the invasion at our southern border that the Democrats swear didn't happen. Now, it highlights even more the importance of the deployment of military personnel and equipment to the southern border to provide immediate support for civilian law enforcement agencies and homeland security was not only justified, but an absolute necessity to ensure the probability of our enemies or terrorist organizations trafficking any more threats into our country becomes very slim. Now, while the left was decrying President Trump's actions, along with the mainstream media and arguing that, oh, there is no way it's not an invasion at our southern border. There's no national emergency, and President Trump's only acting like an authoritarian ruler because he's scared. Now, all we know, those were all lies. Utter hate for him blinds them from the actual truth, or it's that they truly only care about wealth and power and not the safety of the American people that they are sworn to protect. Now, when will the Democratic voters wake up and realize that the progressive socialist left wing has taken over their party and that the state of their current party is the real threat to our republic and the democratic form of governance, not President Trump or conservatives? Now, suppose we started having intellectual debates instead of acting solely on emotion. Maybe we could get something done. Now, people would start waking up to the fact that the majority of Americans all want the same thing. We only have different ideas on how to get there. If we work intellectually, we could come to an agreement or compromise on almost all issues. Additionally, in immigration news from last week, ICE concluded its largest immigration enforcement operation since President Trump in office in Boston, totaling over 1,400 arrests. Now, Fox News took a ride along with ICE as they conducted their raids, and the illegal immigrants that they picked up in the sanctuary city of Boston were the worst of the worst, including illegal immigrants who had been convicted of child rape, murder, kidnapping. One of them was an El Salvadorian most wanted who was on Interpol's red notice. He was an Interpol red notice for aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, and robbery. Another illegal Salvadorian immigrant they captured was living next to a child's playground, and he had been convicted of child rape, served prison time, and was deported in 2017, but made it back into the country under the Biden administration. Then, thanks to the local anti ICE activists, ICE wasn't able to pick up a convicted murderer because there the protesters made their presence known, and it wasn't safe for them to go, ICE to go in and pick up the murderer. So the claim by proponents of sanctuary city policies that these measures ultimately benefit the community more than they cause harm is demonstrably and infuriatingly false. It defies logic and undermines public safety for city officials to assert that sanctuary city policies are intended to protect residents while simultaneously preventing local law enforcement from cooperating with federal authorities like DHS. This non cooperation forces the release of individual convicted of heinous crimes back into the very communities these policies are purportedly designed to safeguard. Consequently, these released criminals are free to perpetuate further offenses, victimizing more innocent American citizens and their children. The crux of the issue lies in the restriction placed upon local officials, preventing them from either holding these convicted criminals or partnering with DHS to facilitate their deportation. Instead, due to these sanctuary city policies, dangerous individuals are simply released back into the general population, creating a clear and present danger. I am not saying local police should do ICE or DHS's work for them, but they should follow federal laws and request to hold criminal illegal aliens until ICE can pick them up. It is only thanks to the risk and threats that our ICE agents are willing to put up with day in and day out that shows they are the ones who truly, genuinely care about ensuring that our families and children are safe from such criminals, even to the point where they don't mind risking their own lives and being called the Gestapo if it means upholding the laws of the United States. Alrighty. Well, that's segment one. Segment two will be another pretty short section, since I don't see anybody in here yet, really, and nobody is I don't see any comments yet on either side, really. Segment two will be another pretty short section. I'm gonna go ahead and I got my live chat in here so I can see if anybody's on Facebook, but I don't see anybody. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with segment two tonight. Doge after Musk's exit. All right. Now, in just 130 days, Elon Musk reformed the United States government more than people who have been in government for over 30 years, and to this day still claim they are working on rooting out corruption and fraud. In such a short amount of time, the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse Musk and his team uncovered surprised most. While we knew that such a large entity would likely have fraud and waste, and the staggering amount of trillions of dollars found was still surprising. All right, I mean, think of that $4 trillion that the Treasury came and tracked. One of the most surprising finds was when Doge announced it had found out that many illegal immigrants who were on the FBI's terror watch list and those who have criminal histories were taking out public benefits. Four on the terror watch list, 901 paroled aliens were collecting Medicaid, 41 received unemployment benefits, 22 got student loans from the federal government, and 409 got a tax refund in 2024. I mean, come on. And that's according to the department. While, yes, illegal immigrants can file a W-7, which gives them an ITIN that allows them through a back door to pay taxes as an independent contractor or business owner, it doesn't provide the work authorization or the ability to file for unemployment or Medicaid. This means that either these states they were living in were helping them defraud the federal government, or they were also guilty of committing identity fraud, because as they would have needed a social security number to qualify for all the benefits listed above. Doge has also helped save the Department of Homeland Security over $160 million through finding and eliminating contracts for illegal alien facilities that sat empty during the Biden border invasion, and funding for five-star hotels to house illegal gang members. I mean, that's insane. We could go on. I could literally do a whole episode on all the everything Doge found. I could literally just go on for I could probably do a too long episode on all of the fraud, waste, and abuse that Doge found, and that Doge is still going to find, even though he has stepped down, even though that Elon Musk has now officially stepped down, because he would have had to become an official employee of the government, and that could have conflicted with all of his other jobs. He came in there, did what he needed to do, help get the team set, get it running, get all this stuff going. Now for segment three. Breaking news alert. This is a news update on the targeted terrorist attack that happened Sunday. So, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, approximately 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the tranquility of Boulder, Colorado was shuttered by a violent attack at a peaceful charity walk. The event was organized to express solidarity with Israel and advocate for the release of hostages still held captive by Hamas in Gaza. The perpetrator has been identified as Mohammed Sabri Salaman, an illegal immigrant from Egypt who had overstayed his tourist visa and then his work visa. Disturbingly, it has emerged that the Biden administration had previously granted Solomon a work visa, which subsequently expired in March of this year. Despite the expiration of his work authorization, Solomon remained in the United States and remained working in the United States. This situation raises serious questions regarding the efficiency of our employment verification system. Had Solomon's employer conducted required e-verify checks, they would have been alerted to his unauthorized employment status, even as a self-employer. Now, the consequences of this attack are grave. 8 individuals, and it's now 12, ranging in ages from 52 to 88, sustained injuries, with one victim reported to be in critical condition, still 2 to be reported in the office, and this is in the hospital, according to the federal FBI. Authorities have classified this incident as a targeted terror attack, and Mohammed Sabri Solomon is currently facing a litany of serious charges, including hate crime, assault, first degree murder, abuse of an elderly person, danger. But further investigation of Solomon's background has revealed inconsistency regarding his age. While his tourist work visa documents he indicates he is 21 years old, his physical appearance suggests he is considerably older, likely in his 40s or 50s. This discrepancy strongly implies that Solomon had utilized a fraudulent ID to gain entry in the United States, not including that his daughter just graduated high school, according to him. He literally planned this thing for a year and had tried to do it earlier, tried to get a gun, but he couldn't get a gun because he wasn't a legal citizen. So obviously our gun laws work, or he would have had him a gun. But he wasn't going to do this until after his daughter had graduated. I mean, that's crazy. He literally just waited for his daughter to graduate high school. And then he goes trying, obviously he wanted to kill people because he had 16 more Molotov cocktails. It's just, I guess he didn't. I guess he thought he'd be able to get a lot more attacks off and harm a lot more people before the cops show up. But luckily, it wasn't. So, yeah, this alarming detail underscores the urgent need to strengthen our visa program and implement more robust verification processes, particularly concerning countries with potentially unreliable record keeping systems that cannot be easily cross referenced by the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. This is also a little off of the my script and off topic, but this also goes in the thing of why President Trump is asking for the behavioral records from the universities of Harvard and Columbia about their students with visas to prove that they are not sitting there being actively involved in anti-Semitic, anti-American propaganda and causing disruptions. Because if not, they need to be deported. Because a student visa is a privilege. It is not a right. And if you are here on a student visa, the government has a right to monitor that you are following the rules, regulation, laws of that visa. Or you can be sent home. Period. It can be revoked. Now, adding to the severity of the situation, it has been uncovered that Mohammed Sabri Solomon had been meticulously planning the attack for over a year. Law enforcement authorities also discovered a stockpile of additional Molotov cocktails and firebombs at his residence, where he reportedly lived with his family. This horrific event serves as another stark reminder of the vulnerabilities within our immigration system and the potential threats posed by individuals who exploit these weaknesses. In light of such instances, the request by the Trump administration for access to behavioral records for institutions like Harvard and Columbia gained new significance, which I already kind of went through that a minute ago by accident. Regarding some local Texas breaking news, the immigration enforcement bill is headed to Governor Greg Abbott after the House and Senate approved the deal for a signature. Under the final language of the bill, counties must enter into any of the 3 ICE partnership models allowed under the federal law. This is Senate Bill 8 requires that all Texas sheriffs who operate or contract to operate a jail to pursue formal cooperation agreements with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement under Section 287G of the Federal Immigration and Nationality Act. So at least Texas isn't going to put up with sanctuary cities. On a more positive note, the Texas House also signed off on a $38 billion two-year spending plan on Saturday that directs billions towards hiking teacher pay, cutting property taxes, and shoring up water infrastructure. This 1,056-page bill has one more step before it lands on Governor Greg Abbott's desk for signature. One of the primary reasons the Texas House and Senate were able to cut property taxes is that President Trump's administration had secured the southern border, which Texas had previously allocated $6.5 billion towards, and this funding was reallocated to now lower state property taxes. Another $1 billion in the budget will go to school voucher program that just started that Governor Greg Abbott has already signed into law, which will allow parents to use for private school tuition or pay for a range of school-related expenses. So it won't just go to private schools, which a lot of people's argument was like, oh, it's just going to pay $50,000 for families who are really rich and go to private schools. No, it can also be used for school supplies and school lunches and a lot of other school things. So now I'm going to get into a two-part segment. It's marked as segment 3 and segment 4, but it's really a two-part segment over the truth about the government's debt and the debt problem and how what the liberals have sit there and said for years is a lie and is just nothing but to attack the Republicans to try to get political points, to score political points. Anytime the Republicans have tried to do something about the debt, Democrats won't work with them and they shut them down. So the Democrats really don't want to help with debt. They haven't done anything to do with the debt. And I'll get into that here in a minute. And also, everything I'm about to say, you can watch as from Arizona Congressman David Schweikert or whatever it is, in his weekly House floor speech highlighting the urgent fiscal crisis facing the United States back in February of this year, was an amazing and really made it easy for anyone, even someone who isn't a finance or economics major, to understand. It is easier for someone with those backgrounds to trust and believe the points he made, but either way, it was terrific. He said he had read through comments his previous speeches had received on what to cut from the budget to eliminate the deficit, and he blew them all away in 4 or 5 simple visuals. For instance, he said one of the main ideas he saw in the comments was to not pay any of Congress or both houses of it. He took a yearly calendar and broke the annual budget down in 365 days, showing that if you took all the money from 40,000 federal employees taking early retirement at an average $106,000 a year, it amounts to a single day of borrowing. Now that's $6 billion. All right. That is just borrowing. That's not including spending. And it was less than a day or a little over. It was like 2 days for Congress. Now, Schweikert then went on to show some more examples of cuts people had suggested, including foreign aid, military, discretionary defense budget, among others, which if Congress were to cut 100% of all those budgets, it would only save 6 months worth of the annual budget. You could cut 100% discretionary budget and not even scratch the surface of the United States debt or budget deficit. He then proceeded to explain where all the spending that is causing America to be on the verge of a financial collapse is concentrated. There is in 2 areas that no one in Congress is willing to discuss, much less tackle. That's Social Security and Medicaid, Medicare. He stated that due to the actions taken in Congress in 2023 lame duck session, where they withdrew another couple of $1 billion from Social Security without replacing the funds, it appears that the Social Security Trust Fund will be depleted by the mid-2033, which by law means seniors in 2023 will see a 20% cut to their SSI benefits, which will double the senior poverty rate the following year. Because the CBO by law cannot show a zero balance, that means in 2034 there will be a $600 billion in borrowing to make up for that shortfall in Social Security. Then if you add up 2033 to 2035, that's another $1.7 trillion because of the Social Security Trust Fund is empty. Now, Schweikert then states that every time one of us idiots, aka me, tries to stabilize Social Security Trust Fund, that side, meaning the left, starts running attack ads on you because they care more about winning the next election than they do doubling senior poverty in America. Which I've said this, I don't know how many times I've said this in my shows and my posts, that the left cares more about power, maintaining power and money, than they care about the actual people in America. It is absolutely immoral, is what he said. By the end of 2035, end of this year, projected debt is expected to reach 37 trillion, with additional 20 trillion over the next 10 years. So that's roughly 57 trillion in 10 years. Currently, our country is on track to be borrowing 155% of our country's GDP over the next 20 years, which will double the debt that took almost 250 years to accrue over the next 10 years. If the bonds return to a rate of 6% or higher, over 45% of taxes would be allocated to pay the interest on U.S. debt, leaving little to spare for essential services or debt reduction, much less debt reduction, which could lead to the United States financial Armageddon in 9 years, potentially resulting in the end of the United States as a country. All right. I mean, just think of that. All these people in the left are like, oh, there's a ad that New York Times read begin this early year. Oh, those 40,000 people that Trump's going to lay off or what they take their early retirement. Oh, that's going to save $6 billion. Well, that's only 24 hours. That's one day of the budget of borrowing, not including spending. All right. And then think if you were to cut every discretionary budget, I mean, foreign aid, defense spending, all of that, you could only say and not pay Congress or the House or the Senate a single paycheck. You could only save 6 months worth of borrowing, not spending, not borrowing and spending, just borrowing. Because we borrow roughly, and this was on base on 2024 budget. Obviously, it's going to be higher this year and higher next year. Based on last year's budget, we borrowed $6 billion a day as a nation. I mean, that's insane. All right, so still don't really have many people in here. I was hoping that I booked it since I'd pre-booked it, I was hoping I'd get some more people in here tonight, but let's see. All right, so for segment 4, part 2 of the truth of the government's debt problem. Okay, so over the next 10 years, due to baby boomers, almost 100% of the nation's debt will be compromised of interest, Medicaid, and Medicare. One of our major issues currently is that we have more older adults than children being born, which means we will face a shortage of workers in less than 10 years, and we'll have more money going out than coming into the Social Security system. Also, when it comes to Social Security and going insolvent, it isn't because Congress stole from the program. It's because over the first 40 years of the program or so, we had more money going in than we had being paid out. Now, thanks to baby boomers and not as many people being born, we have more going out than we have going in. However, with baby boomers entering retirement age and the number of children per family having significantly decreased as the number of grandchildren, we now have more money leaving the program than being paid back into the system. That's why it is going bankrupt. Another idea has been for people to say, give me all of my money so I can put it into my personal account and get all my money back, which is a misnomer because you already receive back on average more than you pay back in the system. On average, the average married couple will pay in about $660,000 over their lifetime. They get back over a little over $700,000. All right, so on average, you get back what you paid in plus a little bit of interest from the T-bills. Now, while yes, if SSI were set up in personal accounts similar to 401ks, you could possibly see a much larger return over your working age than the T-bills generate that the government invests in. But it may not work out that way. So it's all up to how you invest. Now, according to the math, the average household, like I said, pays about $660,000 in the SSI over their lifetime, receive a little over $700,000 back. Then, so they get more than what they paid in, plus a small amount of interest. Now, as for Medicaid and Medicare, the average couple pays about only $166,000 into the program over a lifetime, but will spend around $556,000, which means the government is paying out over $400,000 per household in Medicare costs than what they actually receive. Which is why really the only way to cut spending is to find ways to lower the cost of care through cures or other innovative technologies that can reduce the cost of treatment or even cure chronic diseases like diabetes type 1 and 2 and possibly certain types of cancer to heart disease, which would save trillions of dollars over 10, 20 years in spending, because over half of the annual budget and spending is Medicaid and Medicare. You think about it, in the next 10 years, we will have over 70 million people on Medicaid and Medicare and then SSI. And 70 million people over their 10 to 15 year lifetime, 10, 15 years of retirement, they're going to have over $500,000 in um, uh, medical bills, but they paid less than 200,000 in. You do that math, it is trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. So no, the left saying, "Oh, we can't mess with Medicaid. We can't mess with Social Security. We can cut all these other stuff and balance it." No, you can't. You have to do something with Social Security. Okay, maybe you don't cut it, but you take anybody who's under the age of 55 and their retirement age becomes 72. That means you take the back half of the baby boomer generation and you push out their retirement another 7 to 10 years. That's another 7 to 10 years where you've only got like 30 million retirees instead of 70 million. And you might even cut it more down on that because some of those retirees could have passed in the next 10 years. And you have another 10 years of the younger people paying money in. So you actually hopefully have about as much going in as you have coming out, or more going in than you have coming out. So it doesn't, so it'll save, at least help extend the timeline before it goes bust. All right, to give us a little time, a longer time to figure that out. As far as Medicaid and Medicare, we have got to cut every bit of waste, fraud, and abuse out of it we can. Because if we don't, we are going to see our country become a third world country in about 10 to 15 years, or end up in a world war plus world poverty. I mean, right now, the overall world poverty is, as he had said during his speech, Representative Schweikert said, right now, world poverty is worse than it was in the Napoleonic Wars. And if you know anything about history, after the Napoleonic Wars, it was years and years and years of mass starvation and poverty and war. And we're coming close to another time of that magnitude. So our politicians have, over the last 40 years, kept kicking the can down the road, saying, "Oh, my replacement can deal with this problem. I would rather keep winning re-election." Not only Democrats, but also Republicans have done the same. Now, this has been a bipartisan issue, and while Republicans haven't done much of anything, it's the left that has consistently raised taxes while also increasing spending to buy more votes. Then, when Republicans try to do something, the Democrats won't reach across the aisle and work together. And as Republican Schweiker stated earlier, they will run ads that the Republicans want to push grandma and grandpa off of a freaking cliff. That's what they'll try to say. We are almost at a tipping point. Something has to be done. So, Republicans and Democrats listening to this episode, please help this go viral and ensure that you write your Congress member and your senator and tell them you want them to work together. Ensure that we still have a country in 10, 15 years, and balance the budget and eliminate the $2 trillion deficit. All right. That's got to be done. Also, help it go viral, because I would love to get a hold of Schweiker, because after listening to his speech, I think I'm going to, instead of doing just my doctoral thesis and manuscript over affordable housing, I think I'm going to make it over the whole, reforming the whole welfare system, including Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. So that'd be cool if I could meet up with Representative Schweiker and his team to help with research, get research and data from them and stuff to put in with all of mine. So yeah, let's get this going out and make sure enough people watch it, and they can check everything I've said out. You can check on his video. You can also check his congressional website, which he's got all of the visual aids for the speech that he done, that I just kind of gave a synopsis of and talked about the numbers he had mentioned in there. So give that a look, and we can get a whole lot done. Because if we don't make this, the Democrats don't want to help. It doesn't matter whether we raise taxes and we slow if you raise taxes, GDP slows down, growth slows down, people go overseas, middle class really gets stung, gets hurt more, because what people quit trying to rob the hand that fucking feeds you. You want to go after the rich people, but they're the ones who literally provide the jobs. Okay? I'm sorry, but if I'm a rich person, yeah, I might want to provide jobs, but if you just want to keep taxing the hell out of me, I'm either going to move my company or I'm going to sell it and go buy me a freaking island somewhere and let the 150,000 people be unemployed. I don't care, because I'm not going to lose I'm not going to lose as a company, running a company. I would not lose my, you know what, and go bankrupt because the country wants to keep taxing the hell out of me when I'm the one providing all the jobs and paying everybody, or I'm going to seriously cut my workforce, or I'm going to cut my pay or my benefits or whatever. So quit trying to bite the hand that freaking feeds you. Taxing the rich more and more and more and more while not cutting spending or cutting Medicaid or Medicare, Social Security or any of that is not going to do anything. That's why the Republicans will never go for the tax cuts like the left wants to do, because they don't want to actually do what it takes to balance the budget and get the stuff done. They'll try to pretend like they're balancing it, but they're really not. Because if you look at the true numbers, they're screwing the budget. They're not trying to do anything because they're not touching Medicaid, Social Security. That has to be touched. I'm sorry. It's just a mathematical fact. The math doesn't lie. All right. So we need senators and Congress members on both sides who will work together to get what's needed is done. Maybe it makes stuff a little harder over the next 10, 15 years. But you know what? If not, we're not, in 20 years, we're not going to have a freaking country. Or we're going to be in a civil war and a world war all at the same time. One of the three. So we've got to stop and get this stuff. People have got to wake up. Forget a depression or Great Depression. I'm talking world famine, because we are the world currency. Our currency goes belly up. Everybody's currency goes belly up. That's the way it goes. Now for segment 5, the left's hypocrisy. The progressive left is fundamentally driven by the pursuit of power and control. They achieve this objective through cultivating an oppressor and victim mentality among their constituents. That's all they try to do, is oppress. By convincing individuals that they are inherently disadvantaged and incapable of success without governmental intervention, the left fosters dependence on government support. This dependence, however, paradoxically hinders the very success it purports to enable. A mindset that perceives systematic obstruction and personal victimization discourages the risks taken and perseverance necessary for upward mobility and personal achievement. Consequently, individuals who believe themselves to be victims trapped within a rigid system are less likely to pursue opportunities and overcome challenges, ultimately perpetuating a cycle of reliance rather than fostering independence and self-sufficiency, which by definition is cut from the Marxist playbook and the makings of a socialist dictatorship, which is what they claim MAGA movement and conservatives are about. But we're really about individuality and believing that while government is needed to help hold a nation together and protect it from its adversaries, this is where it stops. MAGA conservatives believe that in common sense and that one's skills and abilities are what separate them from others. Only they themselves can, through hard work and perseverance, rise out of poverty or the middle class and become a wealthier successful. All we care about is that everyone is treated equally based on merit without special treatment due to perceived oppression or victimization or perceived other outside factors that hinder their success because others are privileged. No, that's really the only thing we care about. And was that my last segment? I thought I had 6, 5, and 6 in here. What happened to my other? Maybe the rest of it. I thought I had. It feels like I skipped a whole section, but I thought I'd added the rest of my sections in here, but it feels like, oh, it canceled it out. All right. For some reason, the rest of my show is missing. Hold on a second. Since that is missing out of my, since I don't have the rest of it in my teleprompter, I'll just pull up my notes. All right, this is what I was trying to think of. All right, so that was my second part of 4. That was Left's Hypocrisy 5. So, okay, segment 6. Along with the pushing an identity ideology and dividing all the constituents by race, gender versus biological sex. Since the left believes that gender and biological sex are separate from one another, even though this was not recognized by the science community until after 2013, a couple of years after gay marriage was legalized, which is why the left lost this last election People are tired of being defined and told what to do by their perceived identity. Also, less than 20% of the actual population identifies LGBT. Less than 10% identify as LGBTQ, which is why it's a losing position. Why we don't care what less than 10% of the population wants to do with their lives. But we do care about when that 10% wants 100% of society, and especially our children, to be taught their way of life and brainwashed at such a young age, an impressionable age, indoctrinating them to believe that they have a choice, that they can change who they are. I'm sorry, but there is a male and female. We don't have male, female, woman, bisexual, kitty cat, freaking unicorn, bunny. No, you can't be an animal, not as a human. I'm sorry, there's not 36 genders. There's male, female. Whether you believe that scientifically or by the Bible, that's all there is. We are literally our race, our humanity is literally made to procreate and reproduce. Well, you have to be a male and a female to procreate and reproduce. You can't have two. We're not asexual, so we can't impregnate ourselves. And a male female can't impregnate a female, and neither can a male, which means it is against nature and is not just against God, it is against nature. So another thing is that's one of the reasons why this is, like I'd always said, I said this back when, while I really didn't care if gay people want to get married, fine. I just think the government shouldn't even be involved in marriage. And if churches don't want to marry gay people, fine. If they want to be married and miserable like every other most married couples are, fine. That's fine with, but that doesn't mean you need to force it on everybody else. Because, and I always said as soon as they legalized gay marriage, they were going to open Pandora's box. And that wouldn't be too long before people were going to be claiming that they're opposite sex. And now also, next thing you know, we're going to have people claiming that we're going to have pedophiles, or they're going to start saying that it's not a choice, but it's who I am on the inside and I can't change who I am. That's literally what we're leaving ourselves open for, which is why the Maha movement is one of the most important movements of our times, because in addition to environmental reasons for the increased number of children being born with autism or chronic diseases, I also believe it's the reason why we have seen such an uptick in mental disorders that make people think they can define the natural order of God, or if we're not believers, scientific fact. There is some type of environmental external factor that's causing all this. All right. Obviously, it's always been around, but never in these numbers. I mean, obviously, it's not that high number, but it seems like it just keeps getting more and more. And that's another reason why we're going to have trouble with debt and everything else, and because we're not reproducing enough. We're not that's all over the world. I mean, all over the world, we're not reproducing enough. There's fertility's gone. Married couples are falling out. People, man and woman, all this. I mean, it's screwing up the whole everything. So we've got to fix it. We can't survive this way. We just can't. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. So, thank you for listening. Hopefully, if you didn't catch it tonight, you'll catch it on replay on Rumble or YouTube. Please leave any comments, likes, share. Check out my locals channel if you'd like to subscribe for more personalized content. And hopefully, I will see you for my next show on Wednesday. Have a good night.